Obviously, they had the sign and trade with Lonzo Ball with Chicago. They did the sign and trade for Devontae Graham to get down here into signing him to a 4-year deal. David Griffin has now been the Pelicans GM. This is going into season 4. He's finished 3 seasons. This is going into season 4. Is he on the hot seat in New Orleans as Pelicans GM?
I'm torn because what he did with the Anthony Davis situation, I thought that he tried his best to do everything to keep Anthony Davis and mend that relationship with him and Rich Paul, but their mind was made up. I mean, it's nothing that David Griffin or anybody in the Pelicans organization could have did to keep Anthony Davis. And I thought what he got in return for Anthony Davis, he got Brandon Ingram,
what the best you could get,
who was an emerging star in his league and has been really, really good the last 2 years for the Pels. I thought this past year's draft, I thought they did a good job with their picks this year. People just don't want to come to New Orleans for whatever reason. And the NBA players are saying, they don't like the market. They don't like the city for whatever reason. They just don't like the culture when it comes to playing basketball in New Orleans. I think Chris Paul even alluded to that before in the past when I saw an interview that he did, and he was talking about his time in New Orleans. So David Griffin, I can't put all the blame on him like some people are doing. They went and got Devontae Graham. I thought that was a key pickup. I think that's a very underrated signing for the Pels. I thought he was one of the most improved players. I think he might have won most improved player last year. If he didn't, I know he was a finalist. But I think he's going to really help out that backcourt, with Brandon Ingram, Zion, and the rest of them boys. But
Josh Hart.
But I'm not gonna sit here and say I think that David Griffin's on the hot seat. Like I say, I think it was some things he could have done. He could have did better. But a lot of this stuff is really out of his control.
I would say this. When he got the job and he had to trade Anthony Davis the first year, it's just strictly a pass. Obviously, Rich Paul, when Anthony Davis signed Rich Paul as his client, they made it very clear that they was getting out of the Orleans. And Dell Demps pushed that job as best as he could. So when you get David Griffin in, he got the best he could get for Anthony Davis. And I think he did a heck of a job by getting Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and the picks that he got for Anthony Davis. And I think we were all praising him. I think what people are starting to allude to is the fact that it's been your job now for 2 years since we drafted Zion Williamson. The first bonehead decision you really made was hiring Stan Van Gundy. It was a bonehead decision. People thought it was a bonehead decision coming into it, and it proved out to be a bonehead decision. And now you're covering up that mistake by getting Willie Green, which I think Willie Green could be a phenomenal coach for this team as years to come. But he's being hired at a time where pressure of making postseason is on the horizon now. Ingram has proven that he's an emerging star, potential all-star caliber player, 25-point-plus player. Zion has proved last year that he can average, that he can score 26 points in today's NBA to the proper condition, showing that he can possibly be a player that can play 70 to 80-plus games in a season. The pressure's here. You didn't get a chance. You didn't re-sign Lonzo Ball. You end up getting the trade, but you didn't really get much for him. You end up trading Steven Adams and Bledsoe, who you traded for when you got rid of Drew Holiday. And then a season later, those guys are out of here, and you gave up one of those first-round picks to get Valanciunas. You get what I'm saying? Then you traded a protected pick to get Daniel Graham, which I think Devontae Graham is going to be a good serviceable pickup for this team going forward. But then you got to start asking you a question about some of the draft picks. Is Jackson Hayes going to start getting more minutes? Jackson Hayes is still getting the same amount of minutes. Nickeil Walker-Alexander is still getting the same amount of minutes. So we're not really watching the progression from a roster and front office position in terms of the team. They brought in Mike D'Antoni, to come in, and he's going to kind of help assist Willie Green with this staff and trying to get them moving forward and try to create an identity and move forward. But right now, you're heading into really season 4, and this is the last 2 seasons was what I hold you accountable for. And I'm like you, I'm torn. But what I can say is this: what I will give him credit for is this: it's hard to fire a general manager who has not paid the luxury tax. This team is not prepared to pay the luxury tax, and so forth. So you can't say, "Oh, get rid of David Griffin." Well, it's not like your situation with Portland was paying the luxury tax and they couldn't make the playoffs. That's when you fire the general manager. Because you put all these pieces around here and you overpaid for so many people and the team can't make the postseason. So I'm still going to say, listen, keep David Griffin here for at least the next season or 2 and let him put the plan that he has in motion into play. At some point in time, if you're going to be a competitive team, G Sports, and I know you're going to have to be a salary cap paying team. That's just the real. They're not ready for that yet as a team. We know the contract with Zion is going around the corner. He was able to convince Brandon Ingram to stay here and get paid a little bit under the max when he did sign as a restricted free agent. Now they got to put some pieces together and figure out, hey, listen, can they win half of the games? Can they win 45 games? Can they win 50 games? Then they got to figure out who they can get in here, because at some point in time, if you're going to be a contender in today's NBA, don't believe me, ask Golden State, ask the Lakers, ask teams like Brooklyn. They're all paying the luxury tax. And the luxury tax is at $136 million. The Pelicans are currently at like $105 million. So they're not even nowhere near paying it yet, which tells me that can they be competitive? Sure. But are they going to be NBA Finals contenders? Not yet. You're only going to be a contender when you start paying that kind of money. So I'm not on the hook saying fire David Griffin this yet, because this team ain't ready for the luxury tax yet. But you do have 2 young stars. And at some point in time, postseason play has to happen. Even though Willie Green had just got here, but postseason needs to happen.
I will say this: I do think the Pels are going to be a playoff team next year. Bringing in Willie Green, coming from the Suns, understanding that culture that Monty Williams had over there. I think he can be, somewhat of the same way in New Orleans. Right. I like that the fact that they picked Valanciunas up. I think he's going to be way better and a better fit for somebody like Zion and Brandon Ingram versus what they had with Steven Adams. He can stretch the floor, he can shoot threes. He's a very underrated rim protector. I think the kid that they drafted in the first round from Virginia, Trey Murphy, I think he's going to be able to help. I mean, that guy shot the lights out last year in college basketball. Shot over 40% from 3-point range. I think Herbert Jones, the kid from Alabama, he's a project, but I think if this kid, if he can develop, I think he can be a really good role player for the Pels next year. So they have some good pieces in place to be able to be a team in the Western Conference playoffs. Like I say, you got 3 guys that can get you over 15 points a game at any given night, and that's Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Valanciunas. And if somebody else like a Josh Hart and people like that can give you 12 and 13 here and there and, on any given night, the Pels can be a team that gets into the playoffs at a 7 seed, maybe a 6 seed. So I do think they can possibly get into the playoffs next year.
I think so too. I just think that they gotta expedite the process. Obviously, you got younger teams such as Minnesota, teams like Sacramento, those kind of teams in the Western Conference, and Memphis being another particular one who did make the postseason last year. You got to get ahead of their curve. Obviously, Golden State has missed the playoffs these past 2 seasons. We got to figure if Klay Thompson plays the majority of the NBA season, that Golden State is going to be there, which means to me that a team who made it last year is going to get kicked out. You know what I mean? So I do think they make the playoffs, but they're going to have to. Willie Green, who's played for this organization when they were the Hornets prior to Benson on the team. He's familiar with the area. He's familiar with the culture. He's been down here before. I like the signing, but I think he has to expedite the concept of creating the identity as a coach, because he's also forced to kind of help this team. Right, he's in a situation. He's been hired to make this team a postseason team now versus, for example, Steven Silas, like in Houston, like your team. Steven Silas is not expected to make the playoffs. Steven Silas is there expected to kind of coach a team, create an identity, figure out how y'all want to play. That's not the case in New Orleans with the Pelicans. The identity is you got 2 stars. You need to be qualified enough to get these 2 guys capable of understanding this is their team and how we're going to proceed and move forward. So, again, a lot of that to me is some of it is on David Griffin and some of it is not. But at the same time, David Griffin is going to be held accountable if this roster does not look like shaping up to be a playoff contending roster, meaning that he got to transfer the liability towards the coaching staff versus right now, is this a playoff contending roster? And I think that's when that David Griffin has some trouble with his time here in the Wolves. That's my position. So to me, is he on the hot seat? Yes, in terms of roster, but he's not in terms of financially. The Pelicans are not in the luxury tax. So as a fan who watched the Pelicans, I think that they're a season away from me saying, "Hey, look, if they don't make the postseason this year, and you got a bunch of injuries, then I think he was another pass." But I just think that when I watch the team, expectations are there. David Griffin needs to get it together. He's on the clock, but I don't think his seat is hot yet. But I think he's getting there.
I think he survives.
That's just my take on it. Yeah. I think he survives. I think him and Mickey doing a lot of talking G Sports within the organization. Hey, bro, if you can't win, don't pay the luxury tax. It's a very simple job. But you got to also find a way to keep a guy like Zion happy because, again, I don't know how fortunate enough you get these star athletes, these mega star players. Anthony Davis was one of your mega stars. Chris Paul was a mega star. Zion Williamson, the next mega star. I don't know how long the New Orleans or Pelicans organization will keep fortunate enough to draft caliber players like this. You don't want to be in a situation like San Antonio, where the last time you got guys like a Tim Duncan, you just can't get no more.
Agreed.
That's just my position about that. That's just my position about that. But